This is not the first time.
Are you saying that you have killed before?
Yes.
How many times, Miranda? If you had to take a guess, what would you say?
If I had to take a guess, I know that when I hit 22, I stopped counting.
She's a petite, baby-faced teen, now claiming to be one of the country's deadliest serial killers.
Do you believe this? I fully believe she killed these people. No part of me doubts that.
November 12th, 2013. It was a cold, quiet morning in Pennsylvania. The kind of morning where the sky looks like concrete and the world moves a little slower. Two locals were walking along a back road when they saw something that made them stop. A body, face down, motionless. At first they thought it was someone who drank too much the night before and passed out, but the location made no sense. No car nearby, just a person lying there. As they stepped closer, the illusion broke. Blood was everywhere. The man's clothes were soaked. Next to him was a phone, nothing else. They didn't get any closer. They called 911 and waited. Police arrived within minutes. The man was wearing all his clothes. But his body told a different story. Multiple stab wounds across his chest and sides. His neck showed deep bruising like someone had tried to choke him. There was no sign of a weapon. The first step was finding out who he was. That part was easy. The phone next to him wasn't locked. The call log was still open. In less than an hour, they had his name. Troy LaFerrara, age 42. But the moment they identified him was the same moment everything started to unravel. Because this wasn't a random attack. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It was something else. Something darker. That day, the investigators thought they were dealing with one isolated case, but they were wrong. Troy wasn't just a man found on the side of the road. He was a piece of something much bigger. They didn't know it yet. But his name was about to unlock a nightmare that no one saw coming. In most cases, detectives start with cold data, names, IDs, or system records until a picture starts to form. But this wasn't most cases. They didn't need a system. They had his phone. And that phone wasn't just a device. It was a confession waiting to be read. The last calls Troy LaFerrara ever made were still sitting there. Screens still lit. One number stood out. It showed up again and again. Before investigators could even dig into who it was, the phone showed them something stranger. This wasn't the only number. There were more, all unknown, all following the same disturbing rhythm, a wave of messages, hours of contact, then silence, then a new number. The pattern was clear, so they started with the last one, the most recent. The number led them to a name, Miranda Camille Dean Barbour, 19 years old, married less than a month, no criminal history, no red flags, just a sweet-faced girl with a newborn baby and a brand new husband. But something felt off. Why would a 42-year-old man spend the last night of his life desperately trying to reach a teenage girl? What kind of connection could exist between them? And why did all signs of that connection go dark the moment he was gone? There was only one way to find out. They need to bring her in to hear it from her mouth. And from the second she sat down, the clock started ticking on the most disturbing 24 hours the state had seen in years. What began as a routine questioning would soon spiral into a storm of confessions, secrets, and horror. Miranda sat across from the detectives with a calm that didn't match the room. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't shaken. She looked them in the eye and spoke with quiet confidence. The first question came fast. What was your connection to Troy LaFerrara? The detectives expected something familiar. Maybe a friend. Maybe more than that. Even a hidden relationship despite her recent marriage. But Miranda's answer wasn't what they saw coming. He was a client. Before they could even ask what kind of service she meant, she leaned forward and explained. She posted ads on Craigslist offering companionship. Nothing more. Just a couple of hours of talking, some company. A night out with no expectations. She made it clear. No physical contact, no hidden deals, just conversation. She told them Troy had reached out that day, but she hadn't responded. She said it was her husband's birthday and she wasn't planning on meeting anyone. The explanation fit. It matched the strange pattern on Troy's phone. It started to make sense. Maybe he was living a double life. Maybe the secrets were his. But there was one problem. Troy's phone didn't just show missed calls. It showed full conversations, actual voice calls with Miranda. That meant she hadn't just ignored him. She had spoken to him, and she had lied. The detectives didn't confront her. Not yet. They decided to test her. They asked her one simple thing. Let us see your phone. Just to confirm your story. And that's when everything changed.
Actually, Miranda, we gotta take your phone, put it in evidence, and then get a search warrant to go through.
That's not fair to me at all.
That's what we have to do.
I have the right to walk out of here with all of my belongings, which I'm going to do.
Not with your phone. We're gonna take your phone.
I'm very offended right now.
I'm sorry.
I have time. I need numbers. I need my phone numbers.
You understand we have a job to do.
I did not kill that man. I've never met that man in my life before.
I hope not.
I just got married. You guys are coming in my life, questioning me. I'm very offended.
Do you understand why we're questioning you?
Do you understand why I feel the way that I feel?
No. Do you understand why we're questioning you?
I don't.
So
I never met up with him.
So your phone number being the last...
Yes, but I never met up with this man.
Understandable, but do you think that maybe is something we need to check into?
I want to go home to my baby who is screaming her head off for me.
We're taking your phone before you...
Don't touch me. I demand a lick right now. Don't touch me.
Stop.
No.
Stop.
No. I
have to get physical.
stop.
Miranda's sudden burst of anger during the questioning didn't go unnoticed. She refused to hand over her phone and lashed out at the detectives like she had something to protect. And while they couldn't use that as hard evidence, to them it was the strongest indication so far that she wasn't just connected to Troy's final hours. She was hiding something. Still, there were no fingerprints, no murder weapon, no undeniable proof linking her directly to what happened that night. So they had no choice but to let her go. But the case didn't stop there. The team had another job to do. They needed to be sure that Troy LaFerrara wasn't involved with anyone else who might have played a role in what happened to him. It was clear that his digital life was packed with secrets. That meant the detectives had to go deeper. They needed to know exactly who Troy was when no one was watching. At 42 years old, Troy LaFerrara lived in the quiet Pennsylvania town of Sunbury. He worked in IT and has a steady job at a reliable company. Earned enough to support a stable, comfortable life. To his neighbors, he was polite, private, soft-spoken. Married to a woman named Colleen. They had been together for 8 years. Married for 2 with no children. Just a man who seemed to have his world in order. But behind that clean image was a version of Troy no one really knew. He was leading 2 lives, and eventually one of them caught up with him. As detectives pieced together the trail he left behind, they were hit with something they didn't expect. Just 7 hours after Miranda had stormed out of the station, she came back. No lawyer, no pressure, just a quiet request. She wanted to talk again. And the second she walked into that room, the tone of the investigation changed forever. When Miranda walked back into the room, there was no hesitation in her step, no fear in her eyes. Just a cold, steady voice as she looked straight at the detectives and said, "I want to tell the truth." They didn't interrupt. They let her talk because they could feel it something big was about to hit. She said Troy LaFerrara had contacted her through Craigslist, responding to one of her ads offering companionship for men willing to pay the price. She said they agreed on a rate. When the detectives asked how much she usually charged, her answer came without a pause. Anywhere between $50 and $800 an hour. Depends on what the man wants and how long. She told them she needed the money. Her husband's birthday, the same day, and she had promised him a night out at a strip club. Some kind of celebration, a gift wrapped in secrets. Troy agreed to the price, but according to her, he started making subtle comments suggesting he was expecting more than just company. She claimed she shut it down immediately, told him that wasn't what she offered, that there were rules. They met in the parking lot of a supermarket. Troy left his car, got into hers, and from there they started driving. She said things changed when they turned down a quiet road. He got closer, started reaching toward her. So she pulled over, turned to him and dropped a bomb, and told him that she is 16. She thought that would stop him, that he'd panic or back off, but she said he didn't. He kept leaning in, and then he touched her. That was the moment she claimed everything snapped. She reached for the knife she kept hidden. She stabbed him. Once, then again. She said the blood gushed out like a fountain, called it violent, unreal. Then she panicked, drove to a remote area, opened the door, and left him there alone. But he was still alive. She swore it was self-defense, and she never meant for any of it to happen, and that if it weren't for her roommate, she might have never said a word. Her roommate had figured it out, put the pieces together, and gave her a choice: go to the police, or she would. The detectives listened in silence, but as the words piled up, so did the doubts. Because Miranda's story, as polished as it sounded, was cracking at the edges. Troy wasn't stabbed 2 times. He had over 20 wounds, each one deep, targeted. Troy was a big man, much bigger than Miranda. And yet somehow she claimed she moved his body by herself, dragged him from the car, and dumped him without help. And most importantly, the evidence at the scene told a different story: a man who fought back. This wasn't panic. This wasn't self-defense. This was something else. So the detectives made their move. They placed Miranda Barbour under arrest, charged her with the killing of Troy LaFerrara, and shifted the case into its next phase. The investigators were no longer trying to figure out who ended Troy LaFerrara's life. That answer was already sitting in an interrogation room. Now their job had shifted. They needed to prove that everything Miranda had said about how it happened was a lie. To do that, they had to talk to the one person who hadn't said a word since this all began. The man who had married Miranda less than a month before the crime. The one person who should have seen the signs: Elytte Barbour, 22 years old. When detectives sat down with Elytte, they weren't sure how much he really knew about his wife's work. So they started simple. They asked him, "What does your wife do for a living?"
I don't know anything about that, but the only thing I know is that what my wife does is meet with someone who's willing to just pay you some money to have a nice conversation and sit down. Doesn't provide sex, anything other than companionship, because that's what they want. And if she was the last person he called, then that means that he was a potential client.
He told them she didn't have a job, but every now and then she offered her services on Craigslist. He explained that she met with lonely men, guys going through divorces, men who had no one to talk to, and for a good amount of money she would just listen. That's all it was. No touching, no physical contact, nothing illegal. At least that's what he said. But when they asked where Miranda had been on the night Troy LaFerrara was killed, Elytte gave them a straight answer. She never left the house. She was home the entire time. The problem was that Miranda had already told them the truth. She said she did leave. She said she did meet Troy, and she admitted that she was the one who ended his life. But that wasn't even the biggest surprise. What shocked the detectives more was what Elytte said next. He told them that after that night, they celebrated his birthday at a strip club just like she had promised. They laughed, drank, had fun, then went home like nothing had ever happened. That's when they told him, "Your wife confessed. She met Troy. She killed him." And instead of reacting with horror, instead of asking why or how, Elytte looked straight ahead and said, "She left during my shift. She wasn't supposed to go out without telling me. That was it. No anger. No confusion. Just a complaint." It was clear his version of the truth didn't add up either. So the investigators did what they had to do. They went back to Miranda's timeline, tracked every moment, starting from when she arrived at the supermarket parking lot to meet Troy LaFerrara. At first, the footage seemed simple. She walked into the store alone. A few minutes later, she came out, headed to her car, and sat in the driver's seat. But then one of the detectives noticed something the others missed. Moments before Miranda returned to the vehicle, a man had entered the car. He wasn't there earlier. He slipped in quietly and waited. Then Miranda got in, waited in the driver's seat. And minutes later, Troy LaFerrara pulled up parked and climbed into her car. They drove away, and in that moment the investigators knew Miranda hadn't done this alone. She wasn't acting on impulse. This wasn't self-defense. This was a trap. A setup from the very beginning. LaFerrara never stood a chance. Now the real questions began to surface. Who was the man who helped her? And more importantly, why Troy? Why him out of everyone she could have met that night? There was only one person who knew the full answer. Only one who knew why the trap was set. Miranda Barbour. While detectives were preparing to resume their interrogation with Miranda Barbour, a new report landed on their desks. The autopsy. And it confirmed what they had already suspected, but with brutal detail. Troy LaFerrara had been stabbed nearly 20 times. The wounds covered his chest, his stomach, and his neck. Some were shallow, but others were deep enough to pierce vital organs. Around his throat there were clear marks of strangulation, consistent with a power cord being wrapped tightly and deliberately. The attack wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was controlled and fueled by intent. The medical examiner concluded that Troy didn't die from just one cause. He died from a combination of massive blood loss and suffocation. And on his arms, his hands, his skin were the signs of a man who had fought for his life until his body could no longer keep up. There were no surprises in the report. Nothing they didn't expect. But there was now no doubt Miranda hadn't acted alone. Whoever helped her was just as responsible, just as guilty. And while the detectives were filing the report, something happened they never saw coming. Elytte Barbour walked through the door, just like his wife had. No lawyer, no warning. Only this time he said he was ready to tell the truth. He sat down, calm-focused, and started to speak. On November 11th, 2013, his birthday, he and Miranda decided it was time to do something they had talked about for a long time. Not a party, not a gift, but a kill. We planned to end someone's life. There was no reason. We didn't hate him. He didn't do anything. We just wanted to kill someone. It wasn't personal. Troy wasn't chosen for who he was. He was chosen because he was the first one to take the bait. Miranda had placed an ad under female companionship on Craigslist. Troy answered it, offered money. And just like that, he became the target. They even had a code, a phrase that would signal when it was time to begin. Did you see the stars tonight? That was it, the trigger. Miranda picked him up in her car, and Troy handed her $100. They drove through back roads, rural and empty, just like they planned. In the back seat, Elytte was hiding under a blanket, waiting, listening, holding a power cord in his hands. When Miranda said the code, Elytte struck. He leapt from the back, wrapped the cord around Troy's neck, and pulled. Troy panicked, fought back, opened the door trying to escape, but Elytte slammed it shut again. That's when Miranda took out the knife. She stabbed him, until he stopped moving. When it was over, they dragged his body to a ditch off the side of a remote road. They took his wallet, his watch, his cash, left his phone behind as if daring someone to find it. Then they went shopping. They bought bleach, rubber gloves, and wipes at Walmart, using the same money they had just stolen from a man they left to die. They cleaned the car somewhere far, then went out to celebrate. Dinner at Red Robin, a trip to a strip club. The birthday surprise Miranda had promised was complete. He showed no guilt, no regret, no emotion. His words were flat, like he was reading from a manual. Even when describing the moment Troy took his last breath, he didn't flinch. After Elytte Barbour confessed in chilling detail, Miranda followed with her own admission. Her version matched his word for word. For the detectives, it was shocking, not just because of the brutality, but because of how meaningless the motive truly was. Troy LaFerrara hadn't done anything to deserve what happened to him. He didn't provoke them. He didn't threaten them. He simply made the mistake of answering the wrong ad at the wrong time. And for a brief moment, there was relief. The investigation had moved quickly. The killers were behind bars. Justice would be served. But what no one in that room knew was that Miranda wasn't done yet. Not even close. What she was about to reveal would send shockwaves through police departments across the country. Alaska, Texas, North Carolina, California, Florida, Virginia. Each of those states would soon have detectives working overtime trying to confirm a claim no one saw coming. Miranda and Elytte Barbour were both transferred to Northumberland County Jail in Pennsylvania. The case became a media storm. Two young newlyweds, 19 and 22, killing a man on the husband's birthday. It was twisted, senseless, and impossible to look away from. Reporters couldn't get enough of it. And one journalist from the Daily Item decided to go deeper. He arranged a jailhouse interview with Miranda, hoping for a headline. Maybe a quote or two for his next column. But what he walked out with wasn't just a story. It was a confession so explosive it would rattle the entire country.
Well, first, very nice to meet you after all this time, and this is your hour, so whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I guess I kind of just have to trust that you write what I say and don't twist it.
I promise you that won't happen.
Well, I turned 12. Like, my entire life flipped upside down when I turned 12.
Why? What happened at 12?
I got into a gang, started doing drugs, skipped school all the time, and the gang that I was in, it was based around statism. I always felt like there was something inside of me, and I know it's bad, and I know that one day it will be completely out of control. This is not the first time.
Are you saying that you have killed before?
Yes.
How many times, Miranda? If you had to take a guess, what would you say?
If I had to take a guess, I know that when I hit 22, I stopped counting.
The interview was published, the media exploded. Miranda Barbour's name was everywhere. Not just because she killed, but because she claimed she had lost count after 22. She said there were more, many more, and that she had stopped counting the bodies. Within hours, she was called back in for questioning, and this time she didn't deny it. She confirmed the number, told investigators she had ended dozens of lives, and that she was willing to help find the bodies state by state. She listed the places herself: Alaska, Texas, North Carolina, California, Florida, Virginia. But the detectives in those states hit a wall. There were no open cases that matched her descriptions, no missing persons, no unnamed victims, nothing. Still, this wasn't something anyone could ignore. If her claims were true, they were dealing with a serial killer barely 19 years old. The FBI stepped in. The investigations reopened, and every statement she made was taken apart, analyzed, checked, and rechecked. While law enforcement searched for facts, the media chased a different question, one that was even more unsettling. Who is Miranda Barbour? Her past didn't offer answers. It only raised more red flags. Miranda Camille Dean Barbour was born on December 14, 1994 in North Pole, Alaska. She was raised by her mother Elizabeth and her older sister Ashley in a broken home where her father was mostly absent. At age 4, she suffered a hip defect that forced her to wear a brace for 2 years. After recovering, the family moved closer to relatives. That's when the visits to her uncle's house began. Richard Fernandez, her mother's sister's husband. Between the walls of that home, Miranda and Ashley were repeatedly abused. The horror continued for years until Ashley finally spoke up. Fernandez was arrested and sentenced to 19 years after police found a notebook filled with disturbing details. But the damage had already been done. The family moved again, this time to Palmer, but Miranda's trauma traveled with her. By the time she was 9, they left North Pole entirely, but the change didn't help. At 12, she started hanging out with older kids, got involved with drugs, and claimed she met a man named Forrest who introduced her to a shadowy group with satanic rituals. She said she took part, said it changed her. From there, things unraveled fast. She stopped going to school, became violent, was suspended more than once, and at 13 was diagnosed with multiple mental disorders. Depression, ADHD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. She was briefly admitted to a mental health facility but never received consistent treatment. Eventually, she dropped out of school entirely. At 16, she became pregnant. She claimed the father was a member of the same occult group and that he was later killed. She had a daughter, Aria, but her environment was far from stable. Her mother struggled with addiction and mental illness, and child services stepped in. Miranda and Aria were relocated to North Carolina to live with extended family. There in the quiet town of Coates, she met Elytte Barbour. He was 20 already in a relationship with a woman named Amy, who was pregnant with his child. But that relationship fell apart fast, and within weeks, he was with Miranda. What started as casual turned intense. Their connection was obsessive, centered on dark fantasies, control symbols, and dominance. They married in secret. No family, no guests, no photos. And then just weeks later, they packed their lives and vanished. They reappeared in Port Trevorton, a small rural town in Pennsylvania, living with a friend. That's when Miranda turned to Craigslist, posting under female companionship, looking for money, looking maybe for a target. And when Troy answered her ad, the trap was set. But now the country had to ask itself something darker than how the crime happened. They had to ask, how many didn't survive meeting Miranda Barbour? The answer to the question everyone was asking came sooner than expected. Police departments across the 6 states Miranda Barbour had named launched investigations into her claims. They searched rivers, forests, abandoned highways. But nothing. No bodies. No evidence. And just like that, the story began to change. The media started to shift their focus. The public's fear turned into doubt. And the girl who once called herself a serial killer began to look more like a disturbed teenager with a broken past and a desperate need for attention. But Miranda wasn't done. She refused to let the story end there. In another interview, she dropped a second bomb. She claimed that she had offered from the beginning to lead investigators to the bodies, but they refused to follow her. According to Miranda, they were looking in the wrong way. They're searching for whole bodies, but she didn't leave any. She claimed she dismembered the victims' scattered parts in rivers, woods, deserted roads. A reporter challenged her. How could someone your size do that? She said that during satanic rituals, a demon entered her, a presence she called Super Miranda, a force she couldn't always control. But even then, she said she only targeted bad people. Still, the claims didn't hold up. There was no proof, no bodies, no missing people that matched her timeline. Reporters kept asking, why would she invent all this? Why paint herself as something she's not? And the answer came from the people who knew her best. Her family. They spoke publicly, saying Miranda was unstable. She had always needed attention. They said she wasn't a killer, just a damaged girl with too many ghosts behind her eyes. Eventually, under pressure from her family, from the investigators, and from the weight of her own unraveling story, Miranda backed down.
Okay, Miranda, let me ask you. Did you kill 22 people? No.
In September 2014, 10 months after Troy LaFerrara got into the wrong car with the wrong people, justice finally arrived. But not with drama, not with emotion, not with tears. Miranda Barbour and Elytte Barbour stood before the court facing a list of charges that painted the full picture. Second-degree murder, aggravated assault, robbery, possession of an instrument of crime. They pleaded guilty, not because they were sorry, but to avoid the death penalty. The sentence was final. Life imprisonment, without the possibility of parole. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. See you in the next video.